Good afternoon, everyone. Mary Sloan here with another episode of Inspirational Influencer News, secrets of people making money and making a difference. And our guest this afternoon is really a special gentleman. He talks about what he's done, and I'm like, oh my gosh, so much. It's amazing. His show title is It Takes More Than Heart. Just a sec. Changing the Journey's Challenge into Opportunities. And I think it's such a great title because we really have to all change our journey's challenges into opportunities. Dennis Mellen brings years of leadership experience as a retired Air Force Lieutenant Colonel, a 28-year retired Alaska Airlines fleet captain in charge of 550 pilots and 40 instructors, and a best-selling author. I bet he had very little to do during that time. I'm kidding. He's an internationally recognized speaker, an executive leadership coach, and a certified athletic mental performance master. His target audience is future as well as established leaders. He attended numerous Air Force leadership schools and is a graduate of the USAF Academy, a seasoned speaker whose goal is to bring education, inspiration, and entertainment to a variety of leaders looking to connect the culture with the vision. Boy, those are very inspirational words. Let's hope that we do well with this.
Well, we should have a few things to talk about then, right?
We'll definitely have a few things to talk about. So what I want to know first is what really, out of all this amazing information, is the one thing you really want to make sure that our listeners get from today's show?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on today. I really appreciate it. What I want people to walk away with is feeling we all have events coming at us all the time. We have challenges coming at us all the time. And the key to moving forward is changing those challenges into opportunities. So that's the big takeaway today is we can't stop the events coming at us, but we can alter, change, or affect the outcomes of whatever challenges come towards us.
And, it's funny when you talk about challenges coming towards us. As we were coming into 2020, I thought, the world's really settled down. I think we finally got this whole thing kind of working. Everybody's sort of, it's peaceful, sort of. China does some weird things, but things are, pretty calm. And, things seem to be working all over. The US had an election and, it was okay. And things seem to be working. And then I don't know what happened in 2020, but I do know. First of all, we got hit with a pandemic. That was not a great thing. And I mean, it feels like to me, it's been a roller coaster. It's like, okay, now the pandemic, now this, now that, now this, now that. And I don't know, it just seems to be coming at us faster and faster. I mean, 2 storms swept up through the, eastern United States and all through the Caribbean and up into Canada. And I mean, my goodness, we certainly have lots to talk about if we want to talk about world news. Yikes.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that you bring it up that way. Well, there's no way that we're going to stop those events coming, whether it's a pandemic or a hurricane moving through it. It's interesting that when the pandemic hit, everybody kind of froze for a moment. But I have to admire my brother-in-law. He's a professional musician, and of course, face-to-face just or live performances just dried up. There was no.
So much for that.
Yeah. Instead of throwing his arms up and saying, oh, well, there goes my business or there goes my livelihood, he started pivoting. A classic example is I was over visiting him and he's on a Zoom call with 5 violin students over in Sweden, teaching them over Zoom. And talk about a great reaction to a challenge like the pandemic and finding an opportunity to continue. And I think a lot of people initially were stunned, and then, what do I do to keep my business going? And you have to admire them for the pivot.
Oh, I mean, so many people had to pivot in such a big way. But I think the thing that was great about it, just like your brother or brother-in-law, it's like actually opportunities exploded at us. It's sort of like, oh, out of each disaster comes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 opportunities. Yes, I mean, it's amazing, isn't it?
Yeah, it certainly is, because there were a lot of things that went on there for a good long while. And if you look towards the future, there's no way we can say, well, I'm finally there, I can take it easy. It never really gets easy. It's how you handle hard. When the hard things happen, when the event happens, when your car breaks down, it's finding that new opportunity. Because they're out there, and you just have to keep plugging away at them. I think there's a Japanese samurai saying that applies to this, and it's fall down 7 times and get up 8.
Isn't that amazing? Yeah.
Yeah.
It reminds me of one of my favorite expressions as you're growing up and things keep going off kilter. It's like, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. And
Yeah.
I mean, it really does inspire people, because all of a sudden you can't count on just the way things were. And it brings out our resourcefulness, which I think is really wonderful, because many of us are far, far more resourceful than we ever know or could know. And you must tap into that a lot with leadership and how to have, when you're working with leaders and helping them become better leaders. How do you work with that?
Well, one of the things that I emphasize to them, a lot of times businesses know that they need this leadership training, but they can't find the time. And what I usually tell them is something along the lines of, your leadership is working perfectly for the results that you're getting right now. If you don't like those results, the first thing to look at is your leadership, how you deal with your employees or with your team, how you inspire them, because leaders are the single biggest influencers to innovation and elite performance, for that matter. There's another saying that people don't quit jobs because they don't like them. They quit jobs because of bad bosses, and it's that culture. You can it's not measurable, but as you walk into any business, you can feel the culture as soon as you walk in. And if it's a positive culture, then they're working towards finding those opportunities all the time, instead of, I'm satisfied where we're at right here.
Well, I mean, you're certainly right in terms of that whole culture thing. And, I don't think that gets nearly as much play as it probably deserves, because, you have to, if you are a leader, create that culture every day. I mean, it's great to stand up in meetings and say, oh, well, we want you all to be leaders. But the minute you step off the rails, I'm going to come and find out why you're not doing your job properly. Instead of, giving them a culture of, oh, did something new happen, or what happened? Instead of asking questions, it's like, no, you did it wrong. And, I mean, and we say one thing, but too often we don't mean it really, or we haven't thought through what it might mean or where.
You have to walk the talk, right? And there's nobody that notices hypocrisy or compromises in integrity faster than your team. If it's you're too transparent as a leader, because you're out in front of everybody. And it's important leaders are the single biggest influencers, like I said, to culture and performance. If you can inspire them to do more than what's in their job description, you're gonna get there's a synergy there. You're gonna get a return for it. On the other side of the coin, if you're there are statistics that show that if your employees are disengaged, you're losing up to 18% of your payroll in lost performance, and yet that leadership, culture, those type things don't appear on a financial statement, and too many leaders and managers get tied up with the metrics of how we're performing, when in fact what really drives how we're performing is the culture and how we inspire people to work harder, or work or make their goals compatible with the team or the company's goals.
Well, and it's sort of like, if you create a culture that people are free to actually express themselves, talk about what's hard for them, what's working for them, and what kind of goals they think they can achieve, as opposed to dictating from above, because you really close people in. I mean, maybe somebody thought that they could do 50 sales and you said, well, I expect you to do 25, and they go, oh, okay, well, that's okay, I guess I'll do 25. I mean, it's sort of for leaders, it's very difficult to figure out how to get out of the way and lead from behind, really, isn't it?
Well, yeah, and you're talking about the very essence of being a servant leader. Instead of do this, do that, do this, what do you need to be successful at what you're working at? And it's incumbent on the leader to provide that. And you alluded to it. The term we actually that I actually use is creating that speak up culture, where those positive, purposeful, and productive conversations can occur on a routine basis without fear of shame or retribution. And none of this, oh, that's a dumb idea, or we tried that before. Well, we're in different circumstances. Things have changed. We've had a pandemic. We've got inflation. Things change all the time, and having a different perspective, allowing those conversations, having that speak up culture, allows you to get different perspectives and more options on how to deal with things.
Well, and I think also inspiring people to know that they're trusted to make some decisions.
Right.
That's got to be a big feature, because if you're the only one making the decisions, it's a tough go.
Oh yeah, all the input has to come to you. Everybody's waiting on your directions. It slows everything down. And like I said, those type of situations don't appear in a financial statement or on your key performance indicators, whatever you're measuring, whatever your metrics are for measuring how your team is performing. Those type things don't appear there, but yet we all recognize that if we have an inspirational leader, if we have a speak up culture, if we have people that are excited because I get to go to work instead of I have to go to work, that we're going to have move towards better performance, towards that elusive elite performance that we're looking for.
Yeah, and how do leaders, when you're talking with them, how do they deal with the challenges of that, or how do they feel about it?
Well, it would depend on the situation, what problems they're dealing with, what the challenge is that you're trying to find the opportunity in. But the most successful ones are the ones that can get their team to work at another level, and maybe they can't sustain that level, but and like you were alluding to earlier, some of this is a roller coaster ride, but yet to be successful, you have to think successful, and you have to inspire your people that are in your team or in your company, to make them feel like they're needed and that they have a purpose, and that their personal goals are connected with the company goals or with your team's purpose.
Yeah, I mean, I see it with my son. He's in a big company, and he's got to be able to feel like what he does is making a difference there, and he's being recognized for it at that level,
Right.
so that he knows that he's on track, and he's helping them and they're helping him, because his personal goals have pretty much aligned. He's a salesman, and they're big hitters in companies when they're good. So, I mean, but on the other hand, he makes lots of money, so it's a win-win, right? But
Well, there's making a lot of money, but there's also I have a special purpose. I like to tell the story of there's an English architect named Christopher Wren. Back in the 1660 or something, like, London burned down, and St. Paul's Cathedral burned down also, and he was charged with rebuilding it. So he went out to the work site, which is a great idea. You get out of the office and see what's going on. Now, this is 1600, but he went up to some of the workers. The first one he came up to said, "What are you doing?" He says, "I'm building a wall." And goes up to the second one and says, and this actually is the way he tells it. I might not be telling it exactly the way it is. He goes up to the second worker and says, "What are you doing?" He says, "I'm collecting a paycheck to feed my family." Goes up to the third person and says, "Well, what are you doing?" He said, stops everything, gets a big smile on his face, walks over to him and said, "I'm building a cathedral, and it's going to house 800 parishioners on the weekend, on Sunday, and be a shelter for homeless people during the week. That's what I'm doing." Now, which one of those is an employee or a worker that's inspired? And how, as a leader, can I turn those employees, those team members, into cathedral builders instead of check collectors?
Yeah, and isn't that the $24,000 question?
Yeah,
Always, right?
yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
how do I make them want to do what we're doing as a group, and want to do it as their personal goal,
Right.
because it serves them personally. That's got to be an interesting challenge all the time.
Yeah.
And you're
Well, some
certainly
of the
seeing.
things that I do when I work with leaders and especially with them one-on-one is try and find out what their problems are and give solutions, or help work with the leader to find solutions together. But the main thing is um, uh, giving them some tools so that they know how to approach, uh, how to build trust, how to build team cohesion, how to build that speak up culture that we talked about. So that's a challenge, and it's really what my purpose is to make a difference with each leader, one leader at a time.
I'm curious as to how your leaders that you work with, and how you are coaching them in this day and age where many of their workers got out of the office and started working from home.
That's been
And a lot of them are not
yeah.
interested in coming back.
Right. That's been an epiphany for everybody, by necessity, to find the opportunity out of the COVID challenge. People had to start working from home. And according to what I'm reading out of numerous surveys, they're getting a lot more production out of them. Now, it's not necessarily 9 to 5. Some of them are working overtime on their own, or on their own time, or working from 12 until 9 or 10 at night, whatever works with them. But there's also the other side of the coin of accountability. How do I make sure that that my workers that are working remotely are, one, completing their tasks, but two, we're not having that face-to-face interaction anymore. And I think we're going to find that most the best model, yeah, we're not going to be able to return for everybody is in the office. I don't think that cat's out of the bag. But I think we're going to have to go to more towards hybrid, because it's important for that face-to-face interaction to build that team cohesion. So from my point of view, I'm telling them that a hybrid model where you're going into work occasionally, but mostly working remotely is probably more effective in the long run than working remotely. And I don't know about you, but I need that face-to-face time. Doing things on Zoom is a good substitute, but man, I would really prefer for you and I to be face-to-face in front of an audience, because the interaction, you're missing a lot of my body language. I'm moving my hands a lot, but it's all off screen, So and that's part of communicating is your body language, your hand, we're getting the intone. This is much better than an email message, but it's still not quite as good as interacting face to face.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned that, and all the different ways that people now are consuming information. Because while I've chosen to do a live show and we're live, and that's one way to do it, and I like the energy of it because we are live. And it's not like, we're going to stop and suddenly do something over because, my earbuds fell off or something went askew.
No, the show must go on, right?
We're going to keep going. Yeah. And so that's a certain kind of energy too. But I mean, all these people that now consume all these podcasts, while they're out walking around and you're seeing everybody with earbuds in their ear, and they are definitely consumed. But it's a really different culture.
Yeah, and I think we're going to have to adapt to it, because I think that's going to be the way we work moving forward. And there's some things that will save money on it. Maybe you don't need as much office space. Maybe you don't need as many facilities or building maintenance or any number of things that are overhead costs. Now we're just going to be maintaining the technology, expanding bandwidth, and communicating. Well, it seems like the general trend like now is nobody wants to pay any attention to anything that lasts longer than 30 seconds anymore, it seems like.
Gosh.
You better grab their attention quick. Yeah.
Somebody said that, we now have less attention span than jellyfish or some kind of fish, it's like, are you kidding me? Yeah. So it's got to grab your attention, and otherwise something else will. Yeah. And, that's what I like about this is that, we can't, I was reading just on a little thing on podcasting, and they said one of the things you want to make sure of, is that you set the rules that people can't be multitasking while you're talking to them about what they're supposed to be offering to your podcast guests. And I thought, well, at least we won't be multitasking. There's no way you try multitasking while we're alive here.
Yeah. Well, there's some other interesting problems that I've heard from leaders that I've talked with, and one of them is because we've gone to this remote, holding people accountable is a little bit tougher. Now, there are companies that are using software in the background to see that you're working during your hours, seeing mouse movements, how much you go to your keyboard. But I think that's a little bit Orwellian, to tell you the truth. But the problem that this one company is having is a few of their people, the absenteeism went up. And as they investigated a little bit, they're finding out that people are holding down 2 jobs working remotely and not letting the 2 different employees know that they're doing that.
Oh, no.
So,
Oh, man.
I'm calling in sick today, but under the table, I'm working for another company doing something that's making me money. So there's downsides to, but I think generally, uh, the hybrid model seems to be what people are moving towards.
Well, and I mean, the hybrid model, and I've also heard something about the shorter work week. So getting down to a 4-day work week. So people doing in 32 hours what they're now doing in 36 or something,
Yeah.
and spreading it out over 5 days and making it into 4 days. Are you
Yeah,
seeing
yeah.
much of that out there?
Well, there's been, I haven't run into a company that's actually adopted the 4-day work week. All I've done is seen or read same things that you're talking about.
Yeah,
And it's
yeah.
a possibility. And, if you're getting the same productivity out of them, I don't see any problem with it. I think there are some countries that have actually gone to things like that.
Well,
But
I mean, it really, I guess, depends on the culture you create, right?
yeah,
I mean, is that where, a well-rested, employee who gets to spend more time with family and friends and on his own or her own
yeah.
time, is that better for them? Is that better for the culture? I guess it's all a discovery process,
Yeah,
isn't it?
but if you go to the shorter work week, the cat's out of the bag. I don't think you can go back once you make that. It would really be hard to say, all right, we're going to 32 hours and do that for 3 or 4 years. Hey, this is not working out. We're going back to 40. I don't know if that's that. I think that's what the reluctance to committing to something like that is. But yeah, there's tons of possibilities on it. But there's another side of the equation where we've talked about, well, we didn't bring it up, but the quiet quitting, the people that are basically collecting a paycheck now, to use the Christopher Wren analogy I used earlier. They're doing everything that's in their job description, but nothing more. And at 5:01 in the afternoon, you're not going to see them in the office, So they're
Or on their Zoom, or checking in at all, or seeing what
Oh,
mail, or
on
nothing.
Zoom, how many of them are checking their emails, especially if you have a group of 20 or 30, or who's off camera and what are they doing? There's all kinds of ramifications with that. I think it has, rather than monitoring them with software that spies on you, I think a better way of doing that is inspiring them to be, making sure that the meetings that you're having are worthwhile. One, that the topics are something that need to be in front of a group. Otherwise, let's let everybody do their one-on-ones with everybody, or exchange emails to cover it. Having needless meetings or having endless meetings that are not, there's no agenda to, has always been a problem.
Yeah, and I've actually heard from some people that that's actually better now, because people don't sort of pass 2 or 3 others and go, I think we should have a meeting. What do you think? Oh yeah, well, I think we should,
Yeah.
and then they get together and there's no agenda, no real plan. And it's sort of like, okay, well, we came to talk about this. Well, okay, so we talked about that. Let's go back to our, well, then they just keep talking for a little while, right?
Well, it does give whoever's the leader of the meeting, well, not necessarily the leader, but the leader of
Organizer
the
or something.
team, it does give them an opportunity to get some face-to-face, real-time, I guess it's data, and it allows them to, at the end, to, like I always tell leaders that I work with, make sure you leave some time at the end so that we can go around the table and go, Mary, what's the biggest thing bothering you right now? Or Mary, what do you need to make this happen? Or what do you need to be successful with this? what is it that I can provide you, or what are you looking for? And go around the table. And there's so many times where you have introverts on every team, but they have valid inputs, and we don't, because they don't speak up, we don't go to them. We miss a perspective.
Yeah, that must be one of the real challenges for leaders is, especially if they're sort of in a remote setting or something like a Zoom meeting, to make sure that you bring in and ask everybody a question or find out what's their input on this question,
Right.
because they probably have some input, but they're not going to speak up about it. And so knowing that you're going to have to be the one who calls them into it, because you want to know what they, and sometimes they might have great things that they're thinking about, but that's not their nature to speak up.
Well, that and you have your high performers. Every team has their high performers. But how do, like, that's the A team. How do you get more out of your B team members? What is it about your B team performers that you can draw out? And some of the keys to it are make sure you're appreciating them as individuals. Make sure that we talk about getting on the bus as an analogy. Well, get them on the bus going in the direction you're going, but make sure they're in the right seat. In other words, the right role. Make sure that as a boss, you can tend to have your favorite high performers that you keep giving the big jobs to. Well, check on your assignment bias. Make sure that you're engaging all of your team members. It would be great if Dennis is an introvert, if you just say, empower him and say, Dennis, today I've got this project that's due next week, and I'm putting you in charge. You're the leader of this team. Now, as an introvert, which I'm not, but as an introvert, I've been empowered to get this complete. And if you can start getting people excited because there's a purpose, and to draw out your B team members so that they're performing, will tend towards that elite performance that we're looking for.
Does that, that would really concern me a little bit. And I haven't been in that experience, but it's just, because if you push that too hard and they really are an introvert, and all of a sudden they have responsibilities, maybe they can't do it, or
well,
maybe
that's
they're just
true.
so uncomfortable.
But that comes with the territory of get to know your people.
Right.
If I just get to know your people outside of the work environment, because Joanne over here may have 3 kids in college that she's concerned about, or Joe may have 2 parents that are in long-term care. Those things happening to people are definitely going to affect their work at work. And if I don't know about them as a leader, how can I compensate, or how I'm going to have a bias towards them? They're not getting things done. Well, those are a lot of times short term, and as soon as they're back in the fold working hard, somebody else is going to have a problem. And that it really comes down to get to know your people, get connected with them, and showing them that you care about them.
Yeah, and I mean, I guess that's really the key of leadership, isn't it? When you really have to know your people and care about them, they're not just robots. You can't just press buttons and go out the door.
Make it so, yeah. I'm expecting 100% effort, and I expect this to reach to be a perfect project or an extraordinary project. Well, if you're searching for perfection on every project, you're going to be disappointed.
Well, yeah, not only are you going to be disappointed, but you're going to have people that are really terrified because they know that they can't do it, and they don't want to disappoint you, and they don't want to disappoint themselves. So you're really setting people up all over the place.
Yeah.
Know your people.
Right.
If we got one thing out of this, know your people. I mean, if you want to
Exactly.
be a leader of people,
Yeah.
know who they
Who
really
you're leading.
are.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I can't believe it, but here we are, and we have run out of time. Can you believe that?
No,
30
that was a
minutes
quick
goes
half hour. Yeah.
by like a
Yeah.
flash.
Yeah.
So, how can people reach you, Dennis?
Well, I'm in the middle of rebranding, but for right now, the best place to be to connect with me is on my webpage, www.beabean.net. Now that takes a little explanation. As a leader, we're leading in an environment that's like a roiling, boiling pot of water, and there's nothing we can do. That's the events and challenges, the volatility, the competitiveness. But we can enter that water as a coffee bean and start changing that water into something that smells good and tastes good. And as I convert my team members into coffee beans, maybe we can change that environment into gourmet coffee. So beabean.net.
Be a bean.
Yeah,
So that's BEABEAN,
that's it.
beabean.net.
Right.
Okay, well, this was great. I really enjoyed speaking with you. I think leadership is such an important business and such an important feature. And it's a tough, tough, tough job, boy.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's gotten easier. I think it's gotten tougher because we have so many more distractions. I mean, it was one thing when everybody knew they were going to come into the office, but now it's, well, Tuesday's not my day to be in the office, or gosh,
Yeah,
just
but
more complexities.
but you can't believe the enthusiasm that most leaders have, the challenges, the daily challenges. They're not looking for something easy. They're looking for a purpose, a higher purpose, and trying to inspire their team that next level of performance.
Well, that's great, because that's exactly what we need. And may all of them be really blessed, because
Yeah.
we need great leaders today.
Yeah.
Anyway, Dennis, it's been an absolute pleasure. And thank you again for coming on my show, The
Yeah.
Inspirational Influencer News.
Thank you so much, Mary. I appreciate it. Thank you.